Okay, let's get it rolling. I'm ready to go. So last couple days, you've been dealing with points. All right, you've taken x, y, and put them into a polar point, right? R, theta. And the way you guys did that yesterday, remember you made the right triangle, you did pi fag to find the r, tangent to do the theta. Before the quiz, we went in the other direction. I gave you guys r and theta, and you gave me x, y by plugging them into two formulas, which I need from you today. Anybody remember how we got our x coordinate from r and theta? We did r times cosine theta. Plop that at the top of your page. You're going to need that today. X equals r cosine theta. How about the y coordinate? How'd you get the y coordinate? R, don't forget the r sine theta. We're all good? All right, you're going to need those two today. Because here's what we're doing today. We're going to now do equations and put them into polar form. And just let me show you a quick example. Come on. X equals 7. I don't know, maybe. I only had one person in my first period class that remembered. If I gave you a sheet of graph paper here, and I typed in x equals 7 right now, anybody know what's going to show up on the graph? X equals 7. They're all straight.
Vertical.
There it is. X equals 7. So here's what I'm going to do with you today. How can I come up with a almost exact equation, but now it's going to give me a straight line on the polar grid? Okay, it's not going to be x equals, because if I try to type in x equals 7, well, it's not going to be that, but that was poor planning on my part. But into polar form. All right, here we go. It's all substitution. That's all it is, substitution. Everyone sees an x? What's x equal to? R cosine theta. Substitute it in. Substitute it in. Let's go. Write it down. Substitute it in. In for x. R cosine theta equals 7. Here's the part you got to worry about, and it's in the directions. Leave final answers as r equals. All right, so that's not going to cut it. I need r by itself. R equals something on the other side. So get your algebra skills out. How do I get rid of that cosine theta? What's happening between r and cosine theta? We multiply. How do you get rid of it? All right, divide both sides by cosine theta. So the polar form of x equals 7 is r equals 7 over cosine theta. And just to prove to you guys visually, remember that was my vertical line. Now let me go to the polar grid. R equals 7 divided by cosine G. There you go. There it is. All right, except now written in polar form. All right. Substitute in. That's all I'm going to have you do right now. Substitute in for x and y. So go to the second one. Before we do the second one, anybody remember what this looks like if I ended up graphing it here? X plus y equals 5. On your graph here, if I did x plus y equals 5, what it's going to look like? It's going to look like that line. Okay. So how do I get that line on the polar grid? What are you going to put in for x? R cosine theta. What are you going to put in for y? Plug them in. Here we go. And then we got work to do, though, afterwards. So substitute in r cosine theta for x plus r sine theta for y equal to 5. And then this is where I come in. All right, we need 1r, not 2, 1r by itself. So here's what we're going to do. They both have r's, right? Factor it out. Remember GCF? Whatever they have in common, take it out. They both have an r in common, correct? Take it out. Take out the r. Now 2 r's become 1. All right, ready? Slow it down. Take an r from r cosine theta. What's left? All right. Plus, take it away again, and sine theta equals 5. We're not finished, though, because you know you need r equals when you leave it in the polar form. So how do I get rid of that full parenthesis? What's happening between the r and the parenthesis? Okay, so undo it. How? Divide the whole thing out. See you later. All of it. Cosine theta plus sine theta. And then what am I left with on the left side? Just an r. And over here, doesn't look great, but that's what it is in polar form. Real quick check. Where's polar form here? What was on top of 5 again? 5 divided by cosine theta plus sine theta. There, nope, how about I put a plus sign in? There's your same line. Take a look. Boom, there it was on the graph at the beginning. There it is on the polar grid. Same equations. Questions? All right, ready for the third one. They get a little more complicated as we go. Whoa, this would be huge. Anybody remembers what this graph was back in your geometry days? Back in your geometry days, what this is going to come out to be? X squared plus y squared. Parabola is a common answer, but that was only if x was squared, not y as well. So before I put equals 9, any guesses what this came out to become? Circle. This was an equation of a circle. All right, so how am I going to get a circle here now? All right. Hi, I see an x.
Plug it in.
Substitute in what?
Cosine theta.
R cosine theta, but now look. R cosine theta. I still have to do what with it? And I'll get to that in the second step. Just show that you're squaring it. I'll get to that in a second. Plus r sine theta all squared equal to 9. All right, now how do I square? You square everything inside. So the r and the cosine. Here's how it's written. R squared. And this is how you write cosine squared. You just square the cosine there. Theta. That's what that looks like, everyone. Take a peek. Plus r squared sine squared. That's what happens when you square that. You square everything inside. Equal to 9. Can you guys piggyback off of what we did last problem now and think what I want to do next? What do they both have on each side? R squared. Take it out. Factor it out. R squared. What's left inside now? Cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta. Don't make another move, though. Don't make another move, please. Everyone all right so far?
Yes.
Go back to the front of your notes today. I got to add one more in here to remember. X equals Y equals. Anytime I see cosine squared plus sine squared, I'm going to be able to replace it . One. That expression is equal to 1. Only if it's squared. Only if it's squared. See why I didn't put it here? These weren't squared, so that doesn't apply. But now look in your parenthesis. Everyone sees cosine squared plus sine squared. So now I can replace it with a 1. So all of this here is equal to 1 based on what I just gave you.
Could it ever happen that 1 is squared and 1 isn't?
If it is, you can't use it. They both got to be squared. Good question. What do I end up with on the left side? R squared, which is R squared, right? Equal to 9. And you guys know I need R by itself. Come on now. Square root both sides. And as simple as this looks, this is the equation in polar form. R equals 3.
Oh.
You all right?
Yeah.
Here you go. R equals 3. There's a circle that we started with. All right, all good? Questions? All right, next up. Last one, a little bit more complicated.
Can you go back one second?
To easily do this, can you just always remember the answer?
No. Because if you square root x squared plus y squared, it's not equal to x plus y, actually. Okay. All right, you ready? Last one. Just take a peek at what's this look like on the graph paper, regular graph paper. It's still a circle, but now moved over. So this is what we should end up with at the end. What am I going to do first? It's the fourth one now.
We're going to rewrite it.
With what plugged in?
Substitute.
We're going to substitute.
R cosine
Yep.
theta, parentheses.
Okay, all right, let's go. R cosine theta all squared plus R sine theta all squared equals 4. Now you got to plug in again, right? Times R cosine theta. There was an X on the right side, so I had to plug in R cosine theta. All right, keep grinding along here. We just showed in the last problem, you square everything inside. R squared cosine squared theta plus R squared sine squared theta equals, hey, do you see any plus or minus sign in that parenthesis on the right?
Nope.
Me neither. So there's no distribution. It's just 4 R cosine theta. Mr. Leach, how we doing? I'll be out of here in a second. All right, thank you again.
Don't need to do it.
I'm good. Maybe next time. What do you got on the left side? What are you taking out? R squared.
Why don't you have to get the 4 by itself?
What do you mean? No, I don't know. You need R by itself, which we're eventually going to get to. Okay? Take a look. Cosine squared.
Wait! You're going ahead.
Any issues? Just factored out the R squared, just like last problem.
Oh my god.
All right, what's inside the parenthesis? 1. Everyone agrees? 1? That's what we just wrote at the top of the paper. Cosine squared, sine squared, same as 1. What am I left with on the left side? R squared equals. All right, now we're not going to like this. Last problem, and probably you would do that here. Hey, let's take the square root. All right? But that's a problem this time. You know what? Yeah, I'll get an R here, but is that R on the other side going to disappear? No, it's got to disappear. It's got to be R equals something, and that's the only R there. So square root on this one, not going to cut it. There's got to be some other way I can get rid of one R here and that R on the other side.
Is that an option?
Instead of taking the square root, Maddie, what's your suggestion?
Divide by 1 R.
Divide. Take a look. Hey, whoa, take a look. If I divide that by R, what's going to happen? You just get R. If I divide, because I got to keep it balanced, you do it on the right side, what's going to happen?
4 cosine theta.
Is the R going to cancel out here?
Yeah.
Done.
I think I'm
No. R equals
4 cosine
Show me
theta.
those.
R by itself, and the R on the other side. Done. So, hey, sometimes taking the square root won't cut it if you don't eliminate the R. Questions? All good for tomorrow then. All right. Thank you again, Mr. Leach, for hanging out here.
Wait, what is tomorrow?
It's just for class. It's just.
I get my bills on those.
Wait, you didn't put it into the.